Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. And again, today I'm your co-host, Mike Bailey, along with Ellen DePlacido. Ellen, hello there.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, last couple times we've talked about compost, but this time we're going to change gears a little bit, and we're
hmm
going to jump into seed saving, and that is
hmm
something that has become rather popular lately, hasn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. In
Yeah,
fact, there's
especially for vegetable gardeners.
yes, you're right, absolutely. And there's even some local groups, okay, you know, that individuals can participate in so that they can kind of pool their different varieties of plants, et cetera, and stuff like that, and pull from that resource to experience some of the nice fruit that others have grown and like themselves. Uh, but it's really not as easy as you might think, and that's where we want to
No, it
stop.
isn't.
We need to stop today and kind of take a look at some of the pitfalls of seed saving so that you don't stumble into that. One of the things to take into consideration are really the most important thing to take into consideration when thinking about participating in seed saving groups is the method and type of pollination for the fruit and vegetable that you would want to save. So,
hmm
Ellen, tell us a little bit about that. Why is that so important?
Yes, and I want to reiterate that understanding pollination is so important if you decide you want to save seeds, because really most individuals want to save seeds because they want to produce a plant that has the same characteristics of the plant or the fruit where the seed was produced. So you have to keep in mind that it's the genetic makeup of the plant that determines its growth and production. So really, the question should be, do you have anything to do during the plant growth, pollination, and seed production to ensure that the genetics of that plant that you like are carried into the next generation of that plant?
Well, you're right. And with some plants, that's
hmm
very easy to accomplish, while with
hmm
others, it can be quite a challenge to maintain that
Right.
genetic makeup.
hmm
And that's where this whole pollination process kind of kicks
Right.
in. Um,
hmm
Keep in mind, that, you know, plants within the same species, and that's important. Okay, plants within the same species, okay, can pollinate each other.
hmm
But there are different varieties within the same species, and sometimes the different varieties in the same species can really be somewhat surprising. And a good
hmm
example is zucchini and acorn squash are in the same species, which means they can actually cross
Cross
pollinate
pollinate.
and change the genetic makeup of future
hmm
generations. And
hmm
those plants really are not going to produce a plant the following year that's very nice at all. Okay,
Right.
it's going to be something that you're not going to want to deal with. Okay,
hmm
so let's take a look at the home and see how pollination can be an issue there and how it might impact this whole concept of seed saving.
Okay.
There's some things are a little bit easier than others, aren't they, Ellen?
Right. I would say if you're novice and you want to learn about seed saving, definitely start with your self-pollinated plants. These plants are great seed saving candidates because there's very little concern about cross-pollination, and therefore there's a very small or minimal chance for a change in the genetic makeup of that seed from one generation to another. The flowers on these plants are complete. That means that they have both the male and female component for fertilization and seed production. So they don't need wind and insects and all that. So examples of self-pollinated plants include your beans, peas, tomatoes, peppers, and even lettuce.
Yeah, you're right. And
Yeah.
all the heirloom varieties really kind of fit
Mm-hmm.
into this picture of being self-pollinated, and that's why
Right.
because that's why their genetic makeup is so stable in this particular group. And that's what makes an heirloom an heirloom. But then we have another group, which called our the cross-pollinated plants,
Mm-hmm.
and these typically are plants with that an incomplete flower, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that the flowers of these plants some of them are male and some of them are female. And the pollen must be carried or transferred from that male flower to that female flower. Okay, and this is a seed-saving red flag as far as I'm concerned. Because if you have more than one variety of this particular species in the garden, and the pollen needs to be carried from one flower to the other, you can be sure that some of the pollen's going to end up on that different variety within that same species. And the genetic makeup of those pollinated seeds, okay, are then going to develop, okay, into something a little bit different. And that next generation of plants will not be like their parents.
You're not going to get what you expect.
That's right.
Usually.
And examples of plants that fit into this category can be your summer squash, winter squash, melons, pumpkins, cucumbers, and even radishes and others. See, part of the problem is that you won't know that this is happening until your crop starts to mature. And this is not the time you want to find out, okay, that you had bad seeds.
Right.
Okay, because you'll have lost that crop for that entire growing season. And that's not how you like to do things.
Right.
And so you really got to be careful. You got to be careful about doing it yourself, and you have to be careful about whether or not others, okay, in the seed saving group, if you will, okay, are following these rules and of pollination, or they're monitoring these rules of pollination. You have to be very careful when you have a home garden, whether you put some of these species of that are in some of the same species of cross-pollinated plants within the vicinity of each other in your garden. So just a red flag for everybody, and we'll touch on that a little bit again on next time. But for today, I think we've used up our time, Ellen. So how about we come back to this topic next time, okay?
All right. Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting.
Thank you for listening.